All right, ninjas, we're going to talk for a few minutes tonight about how to not get injured in jiu-jitsu. So regardless of what belt rank you're at, it's important that we be very careful with our bodies. Jiu-jitsu is a game of leverage, and we're using leverage against our joints. And whenever we're using leverage and creating a fulcrum on the elbow, the knees, the shoulders, we have to be careful that we're not over squeezing that. So from one aspect, it's about being responsible. With great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man, right? But with great responsibility comes even greater power, right? So once you understand the power that you have in jiu-jitsu, which is being able to, break people's joints, being able to dislocate someone's arm, being able to choke someone unconscious, but that also requires that you be responsible with that power. So if you catch somebody in a submission, your job is not to crank it out. Your job is, if they're resisting, to not teach them a lesson, right? Your job is to, the way that you teach them a lesson, right? If maybe they're not wanting to tap and you're like, but I got this submission, I worked so hard for it. It's okay to let them out of it. It's okay to even let them out of it and you end up in bad position. They don't give you credit for it. It's okay. I always say that with footlocks especially. Footlocks are very popular nowadays in jiu-jitsu, but they do come with a degree of caution. When you squeeze a joint lock, there's pressure, there's pain, and then there's injury. So you feel that pressure, that's where you tap. If they squeeze it too hard, you feel pain. If they go even harder, then you're injured. With footlocks, it's a little bit different. You don't feel the pressure. And because your legs are so strong, you feel like you can get your way out of it or you can fight out of it. And then what happens, they squeeze a little bit too far and then boom, you're injured. So footlocks, you have to be careful. It doesn't mean that you can't practice the framework of the footlocks and drill the techniques, but you do have to be mindful when you're rolling. Now, some schools are not going to let you roll and do footlocks when you're a white belt or maybe a blue belt, or there's going to be toe holds for brown belts, straight knee bars for blue belts, and straight leg locks for white belts. So there's going to be different rules based on footlocks because they can be dangerous. But it doesn't mean that you don't practice them. I do recommend practice them and starting early. My own kids, my daughter is 13 and my son is almost 10 years old. When they were very young, I taught them how to light the stove, how to light a gas stove. And the reason I taught them early is because I want them to respect that, but not fear fire. Footlocks are the same thing. We have to respect them. We don't have to fear them. If we never do them and then all of a sudden one day you're like, I'm a brown belt and we're doing toe holds now, then they can be dangerous because you haven't spent time practicing them and working on them. So footlocks, again, practice the framework, but be mindful that you're not training full speed and cranking them. And my rule of thumb with footlocks with my own students is if you put someone in a footlock, they don't tap, you have to let them out of it, and you have to just keep rolling and even give up position and be okay with it and not get mad because they didn't give you credit because, you had a footlock and they wouldn't tap. Don't worry about all that stuff. That's crazy. That's, ego flare stuff. So you got to let go of that a little bit. But practice the footlocks. Joint locks and shoulder locks and all that stuff, you got to tap early on it. We call this a closed chain. This is an open chain when you're not grabbing something. So if someone's going for an arm bar and your arm's just free out there like this and you're resisting with all your muscle and they're pulling with all their muscle and your arm goes to failure, guess what's going to happen? You're going to dislocate your joint. So you always tap. Whenever you're in an open chain, like in an arm bar and your hand's not grabbing anything, you should be tapping. If your arm is straight, you should be tapping. If your hands are together and you're defending and you're grabbing something, you have a chance of getting out. But you got to be ready with a verbal tap at any time. Okay, so be careful with the joint locks, be careful with the foot locks, watch the ego flares. It's okay to let people out of submissions. It's okay to keep the game going. If you're so caught up in that, oh my God, that I had a submission and they wouldn't tap and then, I didn't want to let them out of it and you had to hurt somebody, man, you're not, that's the wrong mindset to have in jiu-jitsu. I always think of the law of the farm versus the law of the jungle. In the jungle, only the strong survive. The apex predators survive. They eat up everybody else, but they're the only ones surviving. If you're in a jiu-jitsu school that's run by the predators, right, then you're probably not going to last in that environment unless you're like one of the tough ones that's going to make it through. Versus the law of the farm. On the farm, we plant the seeds, we take care of the seeds. If the seeds are well taken care of, then we have amazing harvest. So if we take care of all of our lower belts and we take care of the people that maybe aren't getting it right away, that maybe aren't natural at it right away, if we take good care of them, we develop a great student down the road and we develop great roles for ourselves. So make sure that you're, in a good school environment, that you're developing the idea of the farm versus the jungle. So joint locks, we tap early on them. Foot locks, we practice the framework. We don't fear them, right? We don't fear them. We practice them and we drill them. And then when it's time, when it's appropriate to our belt level, we start activating them into our game. It's like just turning the switch on at that point because you've drilled them so much. Boom, flip the switch and you got it now. But don't get so distracted by all of that stuff. If you're a beginner and you're a white belt, don't get distracted by the next shiny object. Focus on your basics. Focus on your fundamentals, because that's the stuff that's going to be there for you no matter what. It's fun to do foot locks. It's fun to do all kinds of crazy stuff. I love doing triangles. I love doing all kinds of weird submissions. But my fundamentals are the framework. They're the foundation that's going to keep my house together, my game together. If my foundation is weak, everything comes tumbling down. We don't want to live in a house of cards. So keep training hard, be mindful of the injuries, and also doing all the recovery part of it stuff too. There's all the stuff that you do on the mats, but there's all the stuff that you have to do off the mats too. Part of that's developing a good relationship with your body. And when you work so hard at jiu-jitsu, when you train hard and you get home and you're exhausted and your body's feeling, it's time to serve your body at that point. Your body served you so well on the mats, you have to serve your body off the mats and do all the things that are going to keep your body strong in training on the mats. So be safe, be smart with your training. Happy training, ninjas. Os.